rid of participants. All right, welcome. We are here with our first meeting, our first interview with Major Cox of, what is it, the 99th?
Yeah, 99th Airlift Squadron, 89th Airlift Wing at
Fantastic. Yeah, pilot, you're a former ROTC cadet, as we were discussing. Some great things. You have quite the resume here, which I'm very excited to go through with you, especially this one part, a fun little base that we both have alike. We'll basically start off. Is there any quick summary of yourself that you can give out? How you started, what your major was,
Sure.
School, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So real quick, hopefully I can keep it quick. I was born and raised just outside of Detroit, Michigan. I was active in Civil Air Patrol all through middle school and high school. I'm still active in it now. Actually, I never really left the program, so that's a whole other story. But yeah, senior of high school, junior high school, kind of starting to plan for school. Did the standard academy applications. I got into the Air Force Academy. I was kind of had my eyes set on going there, and then I was offered a full ride scholarship from ROTC as well, from Air Force ROTC. So I started kind of vetting other schools, and I honestly have no idea how I fell upon it, but I discovered Embry-Riddle. It was not in my short list of places I wanted to go. So we went down and visited. Obviously, coming from Michigan, going to Daytona Beach, Florida, there's nothing that could convince me not to go there. And being around airplanes all the time, so had a full ride scholarship to Embry-Riddle. Was there as part of their meteorology program. So my undergrad is in meteorology. Did Air Force ROTC there at Det 157 for, I was a 5-year student. I got done in 4.5 years. So did the whole ROTC experience. I think at the time we had the second largest detachment in the country. We had between 400 and 500 cadets. So did all the usual positions, flight commander, ops group commander. And then my super senior year, I just kind of hung out and did whatever, which is awesome. And then graduated in, December of 2009. And I had a really short period of time. I entered active duty in January of 2010. So I only had about 3 weeks between commissioning and active duty.
Wow.
Went down to Columbus Air Force Base. Did, at the time, it was called IFS. I think now it's IFT, out at Doss. And then went right into pilot training. After pilot training, went and flew KC-135s at our favorite location, McConnell Air Force Base, Kansas, which was actually my first choice to pilot training. So that's don't ask why, because I have no idea. But so I was there for about 5 years flying the tanker. Went down to MacDill to continue flying the tanker. I was there for another 2.5, 3 years teaching down there, and then I had the option. I got offered to go. Next door at MacDill, we had a Gulfstream unit, a C-37A G5 unit. I walked over there, and my very first day in the squadron, they announced we were shutting down. So I was there for about 1.5 years, and then interviewed up here at the 89th, got picked up, and then I've been up here for about 1.5 years now, instructing in the Gulfstream. So that's about as condensed as I could make it. But
that's good.
Yeah, it's
I like it.
Far.
First thing I definitely want to chime up is you always hear the jokes a lot. It's like, all right, you want to be a pilot? Do a whatever degree. Try, underwater basket weave and go for it. But with meteorology, that's you really strove for the heavens there. You made it.
Yeah. So for one, at the time, meteorology was a technical degree in the Air Force's eyes. So that was part of the reason why I was offered the full ride scholarship. And the other reason being, so going to Embry-Riddle, it's a majority. It's an aviation school, right? But a lot of the folks there, whether they're ROTC or not, are pursuing flying and getting aviation degrees. And I've had a number of friends, both in ROTC and outside of ROTC, that have made it to a certain point in their flying career, still at Embry-Riddle, and have either failed a medical. Got disqualified, something came up where they couldn't fly anymore. So now you have a 4-year degree in aviation and all these type ratings or licenses, and you have nothing. What are you going to do? So my fallback was always, if I can't be a pilot in the Air Force for whatever reason, or an aviator, I wanted to do something that I was interested in. So in this case, I don't want to say I consider myself a weather nerd, but I guess I am. I wanted to fall back into an Air Force job that I could still see myself doing for, X amount of years. So
Absolutely. Did you know, yeah, right from the beginning, did you know, all right, I'm doing this, I want to be a pilot, or were you kind of just, were you more wanting to do ROTC and then the pilot was an afterthought that kind of came with it?
no, I've always wanted to be a pilot. My experiences growing up in Civil Air Patrol, I was always around flying, always around aviation, which is something that I wouldn't have experienced without that program. But at such a young age, being able to fly, I started taking flying lessons when I was like 11, 12. I finished my license outside of Embry-Riddle, I think when I turned like 17 or 18, sometime around there. So I've always wanted to fly, and the Air Force, growing up in CAP and kind of being around the military, the Air Force seemed like a perfect venue for that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. See, I see here, you obviously my tried and true, you through the KC 135. Did you have a preference on the R or T, or did you just do them both?
So McConnell had, so the reason I picked McConnell was, one, as you're familiar, there were a ton of airplanes there. I think at some point we had 60 airplanes assigned. There were 4 active duty tanker squadrons, and we had both. We had the R and the T model, which were both there. So had the pleasure of flying both. But then we also had the 8 RTs, the refuelable KC-135. So out of the 400 and something 135s that are still in service today, between the Guard and Reserve and active duty, there's only 8 in the Air Force, or 8 that are still flying, that can also take on gas. So, and that was for a special mission set that we had there. So the reason for wanting to go to McConnell was, one, there's a whole bunch of airplanes to fly, and then all these different mission sets that McConnell only did at the time, made it seem like a pretty good choice. And Wichita had a low cost of living, and being a brand new guy out of college on a pilot training, it seemed like a good place to start. And I would argue that it still is. I had a blast there. So
I have to say the same thing. I definitely went in very, obviously when the recruiter tells you, hey, you can go anywhere in the world, they mean that literally. You can go anywhere in the world. So I was a little upset in the beginning, but my squadron was great. My group was great, and they really took me in and helped me explore and everything. So I do have to ask, what's your favorite place to go to, and why is it Club Rodeo?
Oh, I'll admit something to you right now, man. I've never stepped foot in Club Rodeo.
Sir, I respectfully decline that, and I believe that you did go to Club Rodeo. Of course, for everyone, Club Rodeo is a very, very lovely but not very upscale club over in Wichita, Kansas. Anybody who's watching who's still over there in Wichita, I love, how much fun it is. We love it. But what was your favorite thing in Wichita, actually? Because I got somewhat out. I have to say, I was with Cowtown, which is the old Western mock town. I love that. What was your favorite thing to do there?
So we lived up in Bel Air, and which is just north of town. But what I don't know, the reason I liked McConnell so much was, if I said to you, if we're living in Wichita, and I said to you, hey, I'm going to go out, I'm going to most likely be in Old Town, and I'm going to run into my entire squadron down there, whoever's down there. Like, when you go out in Wichita, you're going to Old Town. Mm-hmm. And so it was a good opportunity that anytime we decided to go out Friday night, Saturday night, or, whatever during the week, there was always people that were down there, and you kind of develop that bond outside of work. We're living in Tampa, and then now living in DC. I lived on the far east side of Tampa, and for me to meet up with friends that lived out in Clearwater, it was a 2-hour drive. So we never really got together. So that sense of community existed in Wichita that I didn't get in Tampa and don't get here. We kind of have our little hubs of groups of folks that hang out based on distance.
Mm-hmm. I guess, and I've said I missed you by 1 year. I got there September 2016.
Okay, yeah. Not by much.
Yes, I did that for 2 years, and I know I just have it. I was part of the 46 arrival, so that's a very, very fun jet, and especially going from the 1950s technology.
Yeah,
this new thing was amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you think? What do you prefer, the 135 or I see the CE-37? What do you think is? I have no idea what the preference of flying or like the feel of it, but what do you think is better for your?
So So growing up in the KC-135, so being a fresh pilot, out of pilot training to, spending about 8 years in that jet, that is a pilot's airplane. It is all cables and pulleys, no hydraulic assist. It's a heavy airplane. It's an old airplane. And I feel like it helped me refine my skills as an aviator by being able to fly that and then teaching it and evaluating it. I enjoyed my time starting that airplane from as young as I was to when I got out a couple years ago. But the transition of that mission and constantly being downrange, constantly being TDY, being at the deed, being in Afghanistan, being in Turkey, the ebb and flow going back and forth, all that kind of stuff built in. I don't think I would ever want to go back to the 135. The C-37 here it's a phenomenal airplane. We just got two last year that are brand new right off the line. So we got them with less than 30 airframe hours. We're getting 2 brand new ones this calendar year. It's a brand new airplane with, new car smell and all the latest avionics and Wi-Fi. And we have an awesome crew. So this airplane, the mission of this airplane is a lot more in depth, obviously, than the tanker. The tanker was really fun to fly, but I like the mission and where I'm at now probably better. So
outstanding. Yeah, Al, you got something?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't know a whole lot about Wichita or Kansas, but I did want to ask, doing a little bit of a fast forward, just speaking in terms of like your post Air Force career, do you still plan, or do you plan at all on just staying in aviation in some capacity?
Yeah. So if we would have done this podcast on February 19th of 2020, I would be telling you that as of March of 2021, that I would be leaving the Air Force and I would be starting my new airline job, hopefully here in DC, and everything would be roses. But COVID has really changed my calculus of what my future looks like. Fortunately, all of that was happening as I was relatively new to this unit and new to the area. I absolutely love what I'm doing here, and the job that I do here, and the mission here, and the airplane, and the people. Everything about being here in the 89th is fantastic, and I have no desire to leave that. So I want to stay here doing this job as long as I can. Once I separate, if I make it to retirement, or if I separate in the next couple of years, I would definitely like to go do airlines, go do cargo, go do corporate. I love flying airplanes. It's awesome, and I want to keep doing that. I don't want to go sit at a desk somewhere and pretend to be manager or something. So
yeah, that's definitely relatable. Is there anything specific that kind of caused like that shift where you were like, yeah, this is where I want to be?
It's twofold. One is the fact that the hiring was gangbusters a year ago for the airlines. They were taking, if you had a pulse and you were an Air Force pilot, you could probably get a job somewhere, which was awesome. And then having that flexibility to or having a more stable lifestyle. But in the transition to the Gulfstream and between my short time at Tampa flying it and then here, I realized it wasn't the same thrash as flying the tanker. So in the tanker, really from day one, starting in 2012 until I got out of the tanker in 2018-ish, it was back to back deployments, like 90 days on, 90 days off, 90 days on, 90 days off. Here's a 5 months or five months off. And in those off times, you were red flag Alaska, red flag Vegas, coronets, fighter drags, all of this other stuff. So I was gone a lot, and which is awesome for a 23-year-old co-pilot or a new aircraft commander. Like flying that jet around the world is probably the most fun you can have. But as I get older and, my wife wanted to kind of settle down and find a place where she could work, that tanker lifestyle was no longer sustainable. So coming into this airplane, I think the longest trip I've been on since I've been flying this airplane has been 18 days, and my average is two or 3 days at a time. So I'm gone a lot, but it's like I'll leave Monday, come home Wednesday, and then I'm home for a week and a half. So it's a little bit more stable in being able to do that. So as I got used to this lifestyle and then living here in the DC area, I got to the point where it's like this is actually sustainable. I'm able to see my wife once a week, or not once a week, but I'm here weekly. It's not like, hey, it's January 1st, I'll see you in June type stuff. So the more I got used to that change in tempo and change in lifestyle, the more I realized that I could stay in and keep serving and keep doing what I'm doing without the exhaustion of being gone, every 3 months for, however endless amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge push. I know my last deployment was 7 months, and I think that was already near the end of my enlistment. So I was kind of already like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this.
Yeah.
But speaking of deployments, do you have any favorite TDYs, deployments, cool stuff? I'm sure you do.
So in the tanker, I saw a lot of LUD and I saw a lot of Inserlic, which I wouldn't necessarily call cool. The experience was awesome, especially as a new guy. Going to fight the war and do all that stuff, like that was pretty awesome. In the tanker, I did a month and a half at Guam, which is if you've been there, that's a fantastic to call it a deployment is probably unfair. But being there, but then in this jet, so when I transitioned to this jet, I bought a corkboard map that I have, sitting in my office at home. And every time I flew to a new airport, I'd put a pin in. And I bought a little package of 150 pins when I first started flying it. And within a year, I was out of pins, because we just go to so many different airports supporting so many different, users and passengers, that I had to buy more pins. And so to say, did I have a favorite TDY? I mean, they're all great. There's so many cool things to see in all around the world. I've literally been all around the world in this airplane especially. So I don't necessarily have a favorite, but just the notion that I've in the past 3 years, I've been to like 200 new airfields I never would have thought I'd go to, especially as a tanker guy. That experience in itself was pretty awesome.
It's funny you mentioned Guam, because that's originally where my deployment started, and then we went to a very tiny island. You may have heard of it, probably not, called Tinian. Yeah, and I spent a whole 6 months there in a tent. But but Guam, Guam was a good time actually. I forget the name of Tumon, I think was the name of the city.
Yeah, Tumon Bay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good spot for sure.
That's a good way to put it. It's a good spot.
So, knowing what you know now as an officer, this is more of a general question, but thinking back to when you were a cadet, is there anything you would maybe change about the program in any kind of way, whether big or small, or maybe if not about ROTC, would you change anything about how newly commissioned officers are trained today?
So if I had $1 for every time I said, I wish I would have learned this in ROTC as I progressed through my career, I could probably separate and be fine. ROTC does a great job of setting you up to enter the Air Force. But you have to remember, you're getting a small sampling of everything, and you guys have prior experience, so I think you understand that more than the new guy or girl that's starting right out of high school. At least you have that Air Force background. For me, especially being a pilot or going into an aviation career field as an officer, like if you're going to join and be a maintenance officer, you leave ROTC. You do your schoolhouse for however many months, and then you go to your first unit, and you're a second lieutenant in command of 150 people, and you're already kind of in it. You have a senior NCO at your side. You're doing performance reports. You're doing discipline. You're leading troops, right? For me, and for a majority of the aviators, more so on the fighter side, because the fighter squadrons don't have any enlisted, in the squadron whatsoever, with maybe the exception of their admin or SARM troops. But for us on the mobility side, it's us and, boom operators, load masters, flight attendants, whatever. And you may be leading them on a crew, but you're not writing reports for folks. You're not doing awards for folks. You're not doing any of that stuff until maybe 3, 4, 5 years into it, when you become a flight commander or you're an executive officer or something like that. So all of those little tidbits that you learn in ROTC, and then you immediately flush when you're going through pilot training and then learning to fly your specific airplane and then getting mission qualified and then deploying. And now you're 3 years down the line, you're a flight commander, and you're like, I have no idea how to write a 1206. I forgot how to do bullets. I forgot how to do this stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that, I wish I had spent more time on in ROTC or more time thinking about. But the good part about all that kind of stuff is that there are, depending where you are, but I've seen them at every base I've been at, and I'm sure you've seen it on the enlisted side as well, is there are people that will do seminars or do classes or do, hey, we're going to do a bullet writing class, for the CGOs from 1 to 3 on a Thursday afternoon. And you just all get together and you kind of rehash your skills or past lessons learned and that kind of stuff. So even though I didn't necessarily grasp all that stuff because I didn't know what I didn't know going through our OTC, those opportunities kind of refresh those skills exist as you continue to develop. It took me when I started at Columbus, my first weekend active duty, I think it took me like 2.5, 3 months to get paid. I couldn't get an ID card, but a lot of that is Air Force centric problems. I don't think ROTC would have done a good job of, other than telling me, hey, it's going to suck for your first month, get ready for it. I don't think there's anything that they could have done to prepare me more than I was. You just kind of go into it blind and kind of make the best of it, which probably isn't the best answer, but it's I think it's an honest one. So
definitely, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this. I believe, especially in the flying side and the maintenance and all that kind of stuff, I feel like it's a beautiful analogy for how rank is not always the utmost, because like the officers are flying, but you have enlisted air crew, you have enlisted technicians, and it's this meld of both rank and technical knowledge. And it's one of the flight line is beautiful, I think, because it's one of the few places where there's rank, there's respect, and there's all these customs and courtesies, and of course those are followed, but it's one of the few places where all ranks can come together and kind of talk out the problem and work not as just a hierarchy, but a full-on team. And I like seeing that. What is your experience with that kind of the separation of, okay, you're an enlisted, I'm an officer, now we're an air crew, or now you're my maintainer, you're my technician, let's work together on this.
Right. So more so in the KC-135 than in this airplane. I'll talk about why in a second. But so the KC-135 basic crew, you have a pilot and a co-pilot, and you have an enlisted boom operator. And then if you're going on the road, you take your 2 flying crew chiefs with you. But a basic tanker crew is 2 officers and an enlisted person. And we always, the standard saying is, there's no rank on the jet, right? So you are putting as much faith in that airman first class up to chief master sergeant boom operator that's sitting in the jump seat behind you when you're flying an approach to call a go around, just as much as you would in your co-pilot, or that they would put in you. So you have to be able to strip that down to a point where I'm sure you've taught at some point in ROTC or in some development program, turning the switch on, turning the switch off. When you're in the office, I think we do, as aircrew, we do a very good job of, as you said, the customs and courtesies. Yes, sir, I'm your flight commander. I need you to do this. I have to give you a LOR or something, whatever. You do all that officer enlisted, normal Air Force-y stuff. But then when you're in the jet and you reiterate at your crew brief that, hey, you as an A1C are just as responsible for the safe execution of this mission and safe return of this airplane as I am, or as the 06 is sitting next to me. You definitely put that onus on them, and then you have to be able to kind of tear down those walls a little bit and be personal with them and get them to the point where they can tell you, hey, that was a terrible approach, I need you to go around, or hey, we have a leak here, whatever. So I think as enlisted and officer crew members, we do a really good job of kind of separating that and saying, when we're in the airplane, you need to be able to speak up, and because it's your butt on the line just as much as it is mine. And we teach that through crew resource management, CRM. There's a lot of training that goes in on both the pilot and the enlisted aircrew positions, academic wise, before we get to that point where we're stepping into the airplane and having that conversation. And then in this airplane, we have 3 enlisted crew positions. We have a communication systems operator, we have a flight engineer, and we have a flight attendant. And a majority of them have come either from other flying positions or other jobs in the Air Force, and have cross-trained. So they're all, for the most part, staff sergeants and higher, tech sergeants, master sergeants. So they already have that kind of ingrained in them, which is nice, because that helps when you're out on the road, especially dealing with the parties that we do, from the vice president on down. to be able to come up and communicate something to you without having to worry about offending me as a master sergeant coming up and talking to a major or lieutenant colonel saying, you know, hey, we have to do this, or this is happening in the back. So there's a unique relationship that exists, and sometimes you forget about it when you go outside of the flying squadron. When you know, if you're going to the BX and getting lunch with an A1C and you're a major, other Air Force folks that don't necessarily understand that relationship might see that as unprofessional, when in reality it's quite the opposite. I'd say it's more professional.
Fantastic. That was a better answer than I could even think of.
Yeah, I love it.
That was perfect.
Oh, good. I blacked out while I was talking, so I hope it was okay.
It was perfect. We're also, one final question. What is the best advice do you think you could give to GMC and POC separately? So one for how to endure and one for, you know, because what to expect. Because
how to apply.
Okay, let's see. Let me start. I'm gonna add a section and give advice for everybody at the end. But let's see. Best advice for GMC and best advice for POC. I mean, that's a tough question, man. That's a good one. You didn't put that on my list of things to think about before.
Well, screwball.
Get one out of the flight conditions have changed. We have to adapt.
Right. And I'd say for GMC, man, like, it's just, you gotta absorb everything. Everybody the POC and the cadre and everybody that's involved in that person's development, his or her development, is doing everything that they're doing for a reason. I had the benefit of growing up, and I keep saying it, I apologize. I had the benefit of growing up in Civil Air Patrol. So I was very fortunate in that I understood that sort of level of mentorship that happens between a cadet officer and you know, a GMC or whatever. But you also have those folks that either haven't grown up in the military, haven't grown up around the military, or unfamiliar with how the military works, and might take those criticisms or those critiques as a negative thing. When really the folks that are working with you are just there to guide you and provide you that mentorship. So the best thing a GMC can do is just be a sponge. Take every single thing that is given to you and figure out how it applies to your specific situation. And if you have to wring it out every once in a while and kind of slough off some of that stuff that's not applicable to you, do that. And that just leaves more room for taking on more information. For the POC, this is your time. So you are part of the development that is mentoring, obviously, the GMC folks that we were just talking about. So all those lessons, all that stuff that you hated about your POC, or hated, I don't want to say hated about your cadre, but all those things that annoyed you as a GMC, your point in that program was to learn all those lessons and figure out your leadership style, what works for you, what doesn't, and then, you know, push that back to the next generation. So you now have the ability to fix all those things that you complained about for 2 years. So fix them, impart that on the next generation of folks that are coming up, and then, you know, go do your thing.
Outstanding. Do you have, I gotta build upon it. Do you have any memories from ROTC that are like, oh, this was the best, or this was the worst?
Oh man, honestly, that was so long ago. So I don't know how robust, especially like we were talking about before this started. So when I was going through field training was 28 days.
Yeah.
And that whole experience was just, I mean, that was insane. But look at that. Going through, so our field training prep program was absolutely ridiculous. Just constantly stress and yelling, and was it necessary? Probably not. But how big is your detachment? Just an offhand question.
Oh, that's a great question. 100.
It's pretty big.
Yeah, it's pretty sizable.
Okay, so like our FTP. So my sophomore class, my was that 300 year? It goes backwards, right? 400, 300.
Maybe that's changed. It's 100 for IMT 100, 200 FTP. And then
Okay, sorry. So my 200 year, our FTP class was like 100 cadets. So it was, and the staff to support that was huge. So we were just getting crushed. It was a very specific program to rattle us, which I can distinctly remember certain situations, nothing worth talking about, but I just remember myself in situations that I did not enjoy. But I look back fondly on my time at ROTC. I always, you know, I brought a jet back to Daytona a couple times, to both a tanker and a Gulfstream. just to show it off to the detachment and talk to the cadets and kind of, talk about my life there. But ROTC was phenomenal experience. Going to Embry-Riddle and living in Florida was a phenomenal experience. So there's nothing that stands out that I'm like, yeah, that was a cool story. It was all great, which probably isn't a good answer, but
no, that's
what I can give.
It's your answer, so it's a fantastic one. Did you actually participate in any of the extra stuff? Arnold Air Society, Honor Guard. I think Scabbard and Blade. I don't think we have that here, but I have heard of it.
Yeah, so I did not do Arnold Air. I did not do Silver Wings, if that was the thing you guys had or have. I did not do Honor Guard. We had an independent program, which it sounds really stupid saying out loud now, but we called it Strike Eagle, and it was like a physical fitness / like tactics. I couldn't even tell you. I was a freshman. I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And I just got in really good shape for 2 years.
I think we have something like that. It's called Phase Zero here. It's
Phase Zero.
Yeah, it's like extra physical preparations for people who want to try battlefield airman.
It was very similar to Battlefield Airman prep. For some reason, I don't know why I did it. Like I said, I was a freshman. I was like, that sounds cool.
Why not?
And I did that, but no, I didn't do any of that kind of stuff. I did go to all of the summer programs called. I forgot what they're called, but like the first year in between freshman and sophomore year, I went to Columbus Air Force Base for a week and got to hang out and check out their stuff.
Oh, wow.
Between my sophomore and junior, went to field training, obviously. Between my junior and senior year, I went and did a cultural immersion program down in Brazil for 3 weeks that the Air Force paid for. They brought cadets from all different detachments, and we went down there and learned Portuguese and got per diem and hung out at the beach all day in Brazil for almost a month, which was, I don't know, that seemed like a great deal.
I got to email Embry-Riddle.
Still sounds like a great deal.
Yeah, it was. They had some awesome programs. I don't know if they still have it, but like we used to be able to go to the academy and do the jump program and the glider program and all that kind of stuff.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so I was working a lot, so I didn't have a lot of time in ROTC or outside of ROTC to do ROTC stuff. I was working my job and doing school, but all those summer programs every summer. So I was a 5-year student, so I actually had 4 summers, which was cool. Every summer I went and did some sort of different program that the Air Force offered or ROTC offered, which was great. And then when I got on active duty, I was at McConnell and MacDill. I paid it forward or paid it backward. And then I hosted, so I was the POC for the 22nd at McConnell, where we hosted ROTC cadets. So we would have them for 2 weeks at McConnell, and we take them on flights and show them around the base and integrate them to Air Force life. So got to see it from both the ROTC side and the active duty side, which was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. We actually have we got our FLP coming up. I think sometime in April?
our flex at Andrews.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think April 19th, I believe we're having that.
Oh, and what is that?
I think Al has a better suited information on that. He participated in a bunch down in Camp Shelby.
Well, for the FTX, I can talk all day about that. But to be honest, I don't know what we're doing at Andrews. I think we're only going to be there for a day.
Yeah, it's from what they say in the description, it's a mock deployment type stuff. Going to be a lot. Trauma care, IED, exos.
Right, we'll have fun with that
fun stuff.
I think they're just gonna run us around and yell. So
yeah, that sounds great. Well, if you guys, if you find the time and you make it down here and you don't want to run around in mop gear and you want to go see some airplanes, just hit me up. We can do like small group tours of all the jets.
Sir, we will absolutely take you up on that. You're gonna regret.
Yeah, 100%.
I appreciate it.
I will take jets over mop gear any day.
Gets me out of the office and I get to go show off our jets. So it's a win for me.
Listen, for safety's sake, just put us all in MOP 4, and then I think we should be able to have close proximity.
Yeah,
everyone will love MOP 4.
I'm in. Sounds great.
Hey, that's all we have. Major Cox, thank you so much for being with us. That was outstanding, and we will absolutely come to you about those planes and see some cool stuff over at Andrews.
Yeah, man. Can I throw one thing out there before we depart?
Go for it.
Yes.
I try and end. I do these every once in a while with different organizations, and I always try and end it with a piece of advice that I think serves everybody well. whether you're ROTC or Air Force or your next stage of life. I'm sure you've heard the term bloom where you're planted, right? And that really takes hold, especially when you start your Air Force career, and especially if you're going to go be an aviator. But the number of folks I talked to that were ROTC or just starting fresh in pilot training that were 100% sure that they wanted to be a fighter pilot, or 100% sure that they wanted to go to this assignment or to that assignment, and have buried themselves into a hole because they got something that they didn't necessarily want. It really puts you in an odd situation, especially if you advertise that you don't want to be in that specific location or a specific assignment. Where if you can accept the fact that you might not have gotten what you wanted, but then if you perform to the extent, if you're the I don't want to say brightest flowers, that sounds stupid, but if you're like the top person in your organization and you're working hard, even though it might not be a place where you want to be, opportunities will present themselves. Obviously, so going in ROTC, I was convinced I wanted to fly B-52s. And I have no idea why, and I couldn't tell you why. It was just like, oh, that seems cool. And then I started pilot training. So I went to Offutt Air Force Base and ROTC on one of those base visits, and then I was convinced I wanted to be an RC-135 pilot. And I was like, I want to do RC-135s. That seems awesome. I want to live in Offutt. Once again, don't know why, but I want to do this thing. And every drop in pilot training up to mine, not including mine, and then following mine, every single class had an RC-135 except for mine. So I picked KC-135s to McConnell instead. And all that said is, if you would have talked to me in ROTC, or you would have talked to me at pilot training, you would talk to me at McConnell. You wouldn't even talk to me when I first got to MacDill. And if you would have asked if I would have ended up here at Andrews flying the vice president around, I would have laughed and said, you're crazy. You don't know what path life is going to take you on. But sometimes there are some opportunities out there and doors that open that you are not even close to thinking about. If I had gotten RC-135s, there's no way I would have transitioned into the mobility world. There's no way I would have transitioned into the Gulfstream, and there's no way I'd be here. Would I have had a successful career on that path? Probably. But I never in a million years would think that I'd be doing what I'm doing now. So all that is a long way to say, wherever you end up, just be the best person where you end up, and I promise you things will open up for you. And then on that, you also have to communicate what you want. You can't sit there and be upset that you didn't get an assignment or a job or an opportunity when you kept it to yourself. So if there's something you want to do that might be outside the realm of possibility, talk to your leadership, talk to your supervisors, talk to your commander, whoever, and say, hey, this is something I want to do. Because as you guys know, especially from on the enlisted side, your leadership can set you up for opportunities, but only if they know about it. So if there's a position that you want and there's a way to get there, if nobody knows that you want to get there, then you're not going to get there. So there's a lot to close it out, but it's frustrating to see people that have awesome opportunities available and dump them because it's not exactly what they wanted to do. So
absolutely. So yeah, that was beautifully said. I cannot agree more. As someone who spent their first 2 years or year and a half in Wichita, just brooding and being like, this is the worst. I hate everything. Just to realize all I had to do was kind of branch out a little bit and enjoy where I was. I'm never going to go to Wichita again, so I might as well love where I am.
Right.
And my last half, I absolutely did. So sorry, I cannot agree more. That was fantastically put.
Good. I'm glad it made sense. It made sense in my head, but sometimes I vomit out words and we just see where it goes.
Yeah, perfect. All right, sir. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, fellas. And like I said, reach out whenever you want. I'm always here to help. So
Will do.
Definitely will. Thank you again, sir.
see you guys.